Sharon was incredibly upset and angry, particularly towards me, her husband, Frank Miller. It was evident from her behavior during our drive back from a party hosted by her friends, Anne and Hank Vanderlyn. She pressed herself into the corner of the seat, attempting to create as much distance between us as possible while still being in the car. Additionally, her frown was so intense that it seemed capable of curdling milk. I couldn't help but wonder why she harbored such strong anger towards me. To be honest, I understand why she was angry because I made a major mistake that ruined her evening. I feel awful for embarrassing my wife of 10 years and the mother of our 3 children. It was a boneheaded move on my part. So, what did I do to embarrass her and spoil her night? Well, I grabbed the wrong key. You see, the Vanderlyns throw these wild parties, and my wife suddenly wanted to join in on the fun. Unfortunately, I wasn't interested. We had never been to one of their parties before, but my wife managed to secure an invitation through a friend of a friend. However, she forgot to mention beforehand that this party was different. She failed to inform me that at this party, all the wives were supposed to toss their house keys into a bowl. Then, the husbands would blindly select a key and spend the night with the corresponding wife in the master suite for some, well, not so innocent fun. As the party was winding down, I suddenly realized what was about to happen, and I panicked. I had never been so angry with Sharon before. I grabbed her arm and led her into the kitchen. "Did you know this party was going to end like this?" I asked her. She smirked and replied, "Yeah, and you didn't think to tell me before we came." "No, because I knew you wouldn't agree unless you had to," she added. "Well, I definitely don't agree, and I always have a choice." "Let's leave," I insisted. But Sharon objected, saying it wouldn't be polite to leave at that moment. She was concerned about being embarrassed, and she believed it would add some excitement to our marriage for just one night. However, I wasn't keen on that kind of excitement. "We need some excitement, Stan." "I need it, just for one night." "I want to be more than just a wife and mother," she pleaded. But I stood my ground. "It's not too late," I firmly stated, grabbing her arm and pulling her back into the living room, where everyone was gathered around the bowl of keys, ready to pick their partners for the night. I made a loud announcement, ensuring everyone could hear me. I wasn't informed about this part of the party. "I'm not sharing my wife with any of you," I declared. I searched until I found our house key, identified by its red plastic cover, took it out, and faced the surprised group. I wasn't told about the rules beforehand. "I don't believe in cheating, and my marriage vows mean everything to me," I proclaimed. Some people grumbled and shot me angry looks, but I didn't care. I looked at my furious wife and said, "Sharon, you have a choice to make right now. Come with me, forget this craziness, or stay and never come home again. I've made up my mind." All eyes turned to my wife, who was now red-faced with embarrassment. She hesitated for a moment, then spoke up, "I'm sorry for my husband's behavior. I would love to stay, but given the circumstances, it's better if I leave." With anger and reluctance, she followed me out to the car. "You're such a selfish jerk," she yelled at me. "How could you embarrass me like that in front of everyone? We'll never get invited back there again." "Embarrass you, Sharon? What about how you embarrassed me by not telling me about your plan to be with someone else tonight?" I retorted. "Well, you were going to be with another wife, so we both would have had fun," she argued. "I don't want to be with another woman, Sharon. I reserve that for you, and it's unsettling to hear after 10 years of marriage that you want to be with someone else," I explained. "It would just be one time, Frank. Out of all the nights we've spent together, it's just one night with someone else after being a good wife for 10 years. Isn't that reasonable?" she pleaded. "Actually, Sharon, it's not." "I can't believe what I'm hearing," I replied, shaking my head. "But this obviously means a lot to you, doesn't it?" I asked. "Yes, Frank, it does. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. It's my chance to be more than just a wife and mother, to have an adventure, to be admired, and to have some fun with another man for a few hours," she confessed. "Do you mean your night with someone other than your husband?" I asked, trying to clarify. "Well, that's a bit blunt, but yeah, that's a big part of it. Probably the biggest part," she admitted. I slammed on the brakes, did a U-turn in the street, and raced back to the Vanderlyn house. Sharon screamed when I turned around. "What are you doing, Frank? If spending a night with another man means that much to you, Sharon, then go ahead and do it," I said firmly. I stopped in front of their house. It looks like all the other cars are still there. Looks like you're not too late to join in. Get out. Enjoy your night with some random guy. I hope he satisfies you in ways I can't. Frank, it's just something new, an adventure. You're perfect for me, but you know I can't go in there alone. We both have to participate, each with a new partner, she pleaded. I already said I want no part of it, Sharon. I've never cheated on you, and I won't until we're not married anymore, I stated firmly. What does that mean? She asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. It means exactly what I said. It's decision time for you, Sharon. So if you're going for it, go be with your cheating friends. They'll definitely welcome a beautiful woman like you into their little scheme, I responded. Sharon reached for the door handle, then hesitated. I could tell she was thinking hard. Her tone softened. Would you pick me up tomorrow morning, Frank? You know, from wherever I end up. I'll call and let you know. It would mean a lot to me. Not a chance, I replied resolutely. But I'm sure your new guy will give you a ride after spending the night with you. You're making it sound so bad, Frank. He won't be my lover. Just someone I'm having closeness with for one night, she tried to explain. I have deep affection for you, Frank. You're the only man I want. Can you honestly believe that you can love me and still go ahead with your plans? Let me clarify. You simply desire someone new for emotional closeness, right? You want a new partner to be intimate with. That's tough, Frank. But you know I'm using birth control, so there's no chance of pregnancy. It's just one night with someone different. It will bring excitement. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be with someone new? It's a fresh experience, a different set of emotions. Trust me, it will add spice to our relationship. Enjoy your time with someone new, Sharon. I hope you realize the gravity of your actions. It's only one night, Frank. That's not asking for too much. Even a brief moment is too much, Sharon. We have our entire lives ahead of us. If you go through with this, we won't have anything together. You're exaggerating, Frank. You won't ruin this night for me. I just want a little time with someone new, and you can't stop me. I'm going ahead with it, and you need to accept it. Got it? Tomorrow morning, I'll be back, and I'll make you forget all about this. Tomorrow, you'll be a thing of the past, and I won't desire you anymore after you've let another man have what I thought was exclusively mine. Now you're being irrational, Frank. I belong to you, and you'll still desire me. I'll make sure of it, Sharon. Listen to me, Sharon. If you go back into that house, we're finished. Your one-night adventure will cost you our marriage and our family. No, Frank, it won't. We're married, and will remain so. We're meant to be together. I love you, and I know you love me. We'll overcome this, I promise. I'll make things right. You're breaking my heart, Sharon. Don't be so dramatic. Think of it as sending me on an adventure. It's an adventure for you, but it's the end for us. Stop talking nonsense, Frank. I'll change your mind in the morning, and you know how. Do you honestly think I would touch you after you've spent the night with someone else? You'll touch me, Frank, and much more. I'll ensure it. God, I never realized how foolish you are. Get out. My words surprised her, but she opened the car door and began to step out. I'll see you tomorrow morning, Frank, she said. I sadly shook my head. No, Sharon, you won't. As soon as she pushed the door to close it, I hit the accelerator and sped away, leaving skid marks for half a block. Glancing at her through the rear-view mirror as I raced down the street, I saw her standing there on the curb, completely shocked, with her mouth open. She hadn't moved when I turned the corner, and she disappeared from sight. I hoped she would call me immediately, realizing her mistake and asking me to come back for her. But she didn't. Perhaps she thought I would be upset for a couple of days, and then she could smooth things over by enticing me to bed. Well, she was completely mistaken. My father always said that if a woman was contemplating infidelity, she had already crossed that line in her mind. And if a married woman was seriously considering it, she had already violated her vows. It's acceptable to have admiration for someone, but if she's actively plotting how to make it happen, she has already betrayed you. As much as it hurts, she ended our marriage, and it's time to move forward. The true tragedy is our 3 children, Jocelyn, 9 years old, Rebecca Ann, 8 years old, and Frank Jr., 4 years old. How could I even fathom a life without them every single day? But I couldn't let Sharon's actions go without consequences. The kids were with my mother for the weekend, giving me some time to figure out my next steps. I drove around aimlessly for a while, still clinging to the hope that Sharon would call and ask me to pick her up. However, it became evident that she had made up her mind. Finally, I settled on a plan and drove home. Just as I pulled into the driveway, my phone rang. I hoped it was Sharon, requesting that I come and get her, but the caller ID showed it wasn't her. Nevertheless, I answered the call. In the background, there was loud music and laughter, and a man's voice spoke. "Hey Frank, it's Rick Wilson from the party. Your wife gave me your number. She's hoping I can talk some sense into you. She's really excited about tonight and wants you to be a part of it too. You're a lucky guy. Every guy here hopes they'll get her. She keeps saying someone's in for a memorable night. Come back and join us. There are some attractive women here eager to have fun with you." "Go to hell, Rick Wilson, you manipulative bastard," I responded, anger boiling within me. "And screw everyone else at your party, including my cheating wife. I hope you all suffer horrible fates." I hung up the phone and entered the house. It took me less than 20 minutes to pack 2 suitcases with enough clothes for a week or two. I grabbed my laptop and shaving kit, loading everything into the car. I searched for our wedding license, tore it into pieces, and then smashed my wedding ring with a hammer. It took a few strikes to flatten it, but once I did, I placed the fragments on Sharon's pillow. I locked the door and drove off into the night. My intention was to find a motel a few miles outside of town. However, first, I swung by the Vanderlyn place again. Some cars had already departed from the party, and a few people were outside, engaged in conversation as they paired off for the night. I couldn't spot Sharon, so I assumed she had either left with her new partner or was with Mr. Vanderlyn himself. The motel I discovered was in the neighboring town. It didn't appear luxurious, but it had parking at the back, which would keep my car hidden from view if anyone happened to be searching for it. After securing the car, I purchased a 6-pack of Newcastle from the adjacent convenience store and decided to relax and watch some TV. The first 2 beers helped to calm me down, and as I opened the third, my phone began to ring. It was Sharon. However, since I knew she wasn't calling for me to pick her up, I allowed it to go to voicemail. "Frank, you're overreacting to this situation. Rick Wilson informed me about what you said to him. I've repeatedly explained that it's just one night, and I'm exploring something new with one person. That doesn't make me a bad person, I promise. Even if I feel a bit sore, I'll make it up to you when I return home tomorrow. Oh, and since you removed our house key from the bowl, they made a new one for me. The person who received it is named Glenn, and he seems pleasant. He's married with children, just like us. Since you're at our home, I went there with him. His wife and her partner are also here for the night, but they're in a separate area of the house, far enough away that we won't hear each other when things become intimate. You know how loud I can be when we're together." She chuckled. "Listen, I understand you're upset, but I promise I won't let him do anything we haven't done before. I told Glenn that we should keep it simple, maybe just engage in regular activities." Glenn agreed, especially since it's my first time being with someone else. He mentioned that he'll drop me off tomorrow, and I'll make sure to tidy up before I come home. No sloppy seconds for you. Sweet dreams, lover. See you in the morning. Get ready for some fun. Love you, Frank. I felt an overwhelming urge to vomit. I never realized I was married to such a foolish woman. Sure, Sharon had always been somewhat clueless, but it was part of her charm. Now, her cluelessness was on full display, and it cost her our marriage, and perhaps even our children. There's no way she could believe I would ever take her back after allowing some guy to have her and flaunting it in my face. I'm certain everyone at the party had a great time at my expense. I was furious, hurt, and humiliated, and my wife couldn't care less. I know I should have ignored her message, but I couldn't. I called her back, and she answered after the third ring. Hey, honey. Glenn and I just settled into bed, so I can't talk for long. Shut up, Sharon. This might be the last time you hear from me. You don't realize what you've done, but you'll soon find out. Enjoy your time with Glenn because the consequences will be more severe than you can imagine. Understand this, Sharon. Once Glenn touches you, our marriage is finished. Do you hear me? Finished. I never anticipated uttering these words, but my current level of disdain for you surpasses any love I ever had. I eagerly await the moment when I can completely sever ties with you. My lawyer will reach out to you in the coming week. I terminated the call within 30 seconds, and she promptly dialed again. I opted to let it go to voicemail once more. Frank. She sounded on the verge of tears. Why are you behaving this way? How could you say those hurtful things to me? I'm your wife. Can't you allow me this one night? She pleaded. Glenn and I had just begun, and now you're ruining it for me. I don't know if I can fully enjoy being with him now. We're not getting divorced. I'll be home in the morning, and we can discuss this. I would come home now, but I promised Glenn I would spend tonight with him. Please understand, I need to do this. He has my key, and I promised him he could have me. He's eager to proceed. She paused, hesitatingly adding, right now as we speak, I must go. Glenn is ready and… he's ready, you know. I love you, Frank. I will always love you. Please don't declare our marriage over just because of this. I can't help it, honey. He's already here. Oh, God, please. Oh, yes, please try to understand, she whispered, her voice trailing off. Once again, I couldn't resist. I called her back, and this time it rang numerous times before going to voicemail. It was evident that Glenn was with my wife, so I left a message. From your last voicemail, I can tell Glenn is already with you, and you're relishing it. You can spend the night with him, experiencing all the new sensations he's providing. Sharon, you have shattered my heart, and I will never forgive you. It's fantastic that you could keep your promise to Glenn, a man you just met, but you couldn't uphold your marital vows to me, someone who has loved you and remained faithful for over a decade. I don't even recognize you anymore. You won't see me in the morning, and you may never see me again. However, you will receive divorce papers next week, and I will be charging you with adultery, now that Glenn is engaging in activities that should solely be reserved for me. You are now officially a cheater. You can cheat with any man you desire from now on, but in case you care, you have lost me forever, and I will undoubtedly uphold that promise. Sharon did not return my call. I am aware of how consumed she becomes during intimate moments, entering a world where nothing else matters except her and the man she's with. By now, they were wholly fixated on each other. It doesn't matter if she received my last message, the damage is irreparable, and our marriage is irretrievably broken. There is no way I will ever take her back after she disrespected and humiliated me in such a manner, utterly mocking our sacred union. I finished the remainder of the six-pack. Sharon was vocal. That's how she was with me, and I assume she is the same with Glenn. In any case, the beer provided some solace, and eventually, I slipped into slumber, tears still streaming down my face. I awoke approximately 4 hours later, and the harsh reality hit me with full force. My wife had forsaken our love, and now I must determine how to safeguard my children, rid her from my life, and ensure that everyone at that gathering experiences maximum misery. We reside in Bowie, Mississippi, a picturesque town on the Gulf of Mexico. Since Mississippi permits divorce on grounds of adultery, I could potentially evade alimony payments and perhaps even gain custody of my children. Securing a skilled attorney quickly became imperative. At 7:30, after taking a shower and changing clothes, I phoned my mother to update her on the situation. Just like me, she was taken aback by Sharon's actions. Thankfully, she had the kids for the weekend and assured me that she wouldn't discuss anything with them. Once I had a plan in place, I informed my mother that I would pick up the children. Realistically, I assumed that Sharon would likely be granted temporary custody. It's difficult to admit, but she has been a devoted mother and wife until last night. After ending my conversation with my mother, I headed to a nearby diner for breakfast. As I parked and approached the entrance, my phone began to ring. It was Sharon. I deliberated whether to answer or not, ultimately deciding against it and allowing it to go to voicemail. However, she didn't leave a message. Instead, she persistently called back until she finally left a tearful voicemail. Frank, answer the phone. Talk to me. What do you mean I may never see you again? And why all this talk about divorce papers? You can't leave me, Frank. We have 3 precious children who need both of us. Why did you tear up our marriage license and shatter your wedding ring? I gave that ring to you on our wedding day, and you promised to wear it forever. It symbolizes our eternal love. I anticipated you would be upset, but I never expected you to go to such extremes, Frank. I love you deeply, but I truly needed that special night with Glenn. It meant a lot to me. He made me feel alive and youthful again. I had forgotten how exhilarating it is to laugh and scream simultaneously. But as incredible as last night was, you are the only man for me, Frank. I know how to make it up to you and mend your wounded heart. Please come home so I can demonstrate how much I love you and set things right." Her voice cracked as she continued, "Frank, why can't you see? I just needed one night with someone new to feel desired and want it again. It felt amazing to know that another man desired me and found me beautiful enough to want me. Please, Frank, try to understand. It was just a fleeting moment, nothing more. Please talk to me. I love you. You and our children mean everything to me." Her voice grew weaker, and she concluded amidst sobs, "It was all an act, Frank. Oh God, we were just intimate. That's all, Frank." And the message ended. I stood outside the diner, utterly stunned. Had Sharon been concealing these emotions throughout our entire marriage, only for them to surface now in her mid-30s? Sharon remains as stunning as ever, standing at 5 and weighing 130 pounds, with lustrous dark blonde hair cascading down to her shoulders and captivating light blue eyes. She possesses an incredible physique, with breasts that are neither too large nor too small, and while her hips may have widened slightly after giving birth to 3 children, she still turns heads wherever she goes. So, what is the meaning behind this claim of needing to feel desired by another man? I have always demonstrated my love and desire for her. I surprise her with flowers, take her on weekly dates, and express how beautiful she is and how much I love her every day. Until last night, our intimate life seemed incredible, or at least I thought so. We made love at least 3 times a week, and I always ensured she experienced pleasure. What did I overlook? Despite my loss of appetite, I entered the diner. I found an unoccupied table and ordered scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. I barely touched my breakfast but consumed at least 6 cups of coffee. I had never felt so bewildered, hollow, and devastated in my entire life. I had heard people express their desire to be dead, and now I comprehended their sentiments. The only thing that kept me going was the thought of my children. I had to live for them. I had to navigate through this agonizing ordeal that Sharon had created and build a future for them. That thought alone instilled me with determination. I would persevere. I simply needed to figure out how. Throughout the day, Sharon called my phone approximately 20 times, yet I always allowed it to go to voicemail. She pleaded for my understanding, but she never once apologized for her actions. She never admitted to making a mistake. Instead, she insisted that she needed that one night, and that it was my responsibility to support her. She mentioned that they were intimate only 3 times that night, and once more in the morning. She expressed concern that I might have overheard them during their first encounter, right as Glenn performed his role. She hoped I hadn't heard too much. She truly knew how to inflict deep pain upon me. I couldn't believe she could be so reckless. However, on the positive side, I now possessed solid audio evidence of her infidelity that I could utilize against her in court. While I wasn't certain if it would suffice, the recordings were highly convincing and left no room for doubt. My plan for the next day was to secure a competent attorney and gather all the necessary information. I visited my children at my mother's place. She informed me that Sharon had already called to check on the kids and inquire about my whereabouts. My mother explained that I was upset about what had transpired and didn't wish to see or speak with Sharon. Apparently, Sharon began crying, stating that I didn't understand. My mother reassured her that no man would comprehend a wife flaunting an affair in her husband's face. Sharon asked if she should pick up the kids, but my mother suggested it might be best for them to stay a few more days until things settled down. The children were delighted to see me, but wondered where their mother was. I informed them that she was occupied with something important to her, and that they would be staying with Grandma a bit longer. We played games, had dinner together, and after embracing and kissing them goodbye, I returned to my motel. Tomorrow was bound to be a hectic day before calling it a night. I had one final task to complete, or rather, a quick drive-by. As soon as I laid eyes on my house, tears welled up once again. I cried for what was lost, knowing it was irrevocable. Surprisingly, there were no unfamiliar cars in the driveway, although there might be one in the garage. The only illumination came from the kitchen light downstairs, indicating that Sharon was alone, at least for tonight. And then it struck me, I still had lingering feelings for her. No, I wouldn't take her back after what she had done, but the thought of her betraying me with another man pained me deeply. I tried to resist the urge to spy on her, but I succumbed to it. Parking a block away, I walked back and glanced through the kitchen window. There she sat at the table, an empty bottle of Grey Goose beside her. Her hair was disheveled, mascara streaks marking her face, and she wore a robe. Resting her head on the table with closed eyes, it was evident that she had been crying. Surrounded by a pile of tissues, I felt a momentary pang of sympathy for her. But then, the recollection of her betrayal washed over me, extinguishing any trace of empathy. I yearned to lash out, yet instead, I retraced my steps to the car and drove away. There was a hint of satisfaction. Perhaps she was beginning to comprehend the magnitude of her actions. If she sought pity, she could call her lover Glenn. Monday arrived early, and I had a busy schedule at the diner. I ordered eggs, toast, and coffee, and this time, I finished everything. Afterward, I phoned my mom and spoke to each of my children, assuring them of my love and promising to see them soon. Then I contacted work and informed my former executive assistant that I would be attending to personal matters over the next few days. I assured her that she could reach out to me via call or text if anything urgent arose. She sensed that something was amiss, but I didn't delve into the details, promising to explain later. During my final year at Old Miss, I shared an apartment with two close friends, Douglas Pra III and Maxwell McCrae. We forged a strong bond, and although we seldom met, we remained connected throughout the years. My major was in computer science, Doug pursued business administration, and Max embarked on a career in law. I called Doug first and asked if both of them could join me for drinks around 5 o'clock. I needed their guidance on a weighty matter, and Doug agreed to get in touch with Max. We arranged to meet at the beachside lava bar. I arrived early, and shortly after 5, Max arrived, followed by Doug 10 minutes later. Warm greetings were exchanged, and we secured a table on the patio, ordering drinks and raising a toast. "What's going on, Frank?" Doug inquired. "Your call sounded serious." "Sharon cheated on me and made sure I knew about it," I confided, proceeding to recount the entire story. "Dang, that's rough," Doug exclaimed. "I can't even fathom her doing something like that." "Same here, but she proceeded without shame or remorse," Max chimed in. "And she still thinks I'm overreacting. Can you believe that?" "So, what's your plan?" Max inquired. "I want a divorce, and I want to teach Glenn a lesson, whoever he is, along with the other individuals at the party. But more than anything, I have a strong desire to gain custody of my children." However, Max cautioned that obtaining custody might not be straightforward. Unless she has been neglectful as a mother, it's likely that she will get custody if she is generally good with the kids. In that case, I would be responsible for child support. I expressed my willingness to handle the financial aspect as long as I can still spend quality time with my children whenever I want. Max nodded and mentioned that courts usually prefer both parents to be involved in raising the kids, as long as they are both fit parents. Doug raised the question of finances. Considering that Sharon is a stay-at-home mother, and I have a solid 6-figure salary, he inquired about the contents of my accounts, such as checking, savings, investments, 401(k)s, and IRAs. I shared that I had all of those, and when combined, it would likely amount to around $700,000 to $800. Perhaps a bit more. Max explained that the court would probably divide those assets evenly, giving Sharon the house and custody. However, if I can provide evidence of her infidelity, which seems like a strong case, I might not have to pay alimony. "Do you happen to know an excellent divorce lawyer?" I asked. As a matter of fact, one of the partners at my firm is one of the top family law attorneys in Mississippi. Her name is Maddie Simmons. "Would you like me to arrange a meeting for you?" Max offered. "Absolutely. The sooner, the better," I replied. In the meantime, Doug chimed in, "I'll see what I can do to protect some of your finances. Send me all the details about your assets, every dollar you have, and I'll start working on it." We raised our glasses once more, had a couple more drinks, and bid each other good night. Suddenly, I felt a sense of relief that I hadn't experienced since this whole ordeal began. As I drove back to my motel, my mind buzzing with the tasks ahead, my phone rang. It was Sharon. After a brief hesitation, I pulled over to answer. "What's up, Sharon?" I asked, getting straight to the point. "What do you think I want, Frank?" "I want my husband back home where he belongs." I could hear the tears in her voice. "Well, unfortunately for you, your little escapade with Glenn makes it impossible for me to ever come back home again," I replied firmly. She burst into tears. "Don't say that, Frank. Don't you dare. It was just one night away from you after 10 years, and that's not enough for a divorce. Think again. Adultery is definitely grounds for divorce in Mississippi, I explained. Why do you keep calling it just a fling? When a married woman sleeps with someone new, whether it's for a night or a second, it's adultery. I cautioned you from the moment Glenn entered the picture, and my words still hold true. Oh God, please, Frank, you can't do this to me. You brought this upon yourself, Sharon. What happened to you? Are you on medication? Did you experience a mental breakdown, or are you simply incredibly foolish? It appears that you were so fixated on the idea of being with another man that you disregarded our children and my desires. You just had to go through with it. Well, you did, and now you must face the consequences. I believed we were genuinely happy, with a lovely home, 3 wonderful children, and a fulfilling intimate life. Then you shattered it all by engaging in a physical relationship with a stranger and throwing it in my face. We were always happy, Frank, and we could have continued to be happy. I merely wanted to experience being with someone new for one night in the context of our long-lasting relationship, with no harm done. That's all. No harm? You fail to comprehend the extent of the damage caused in just one night. Your selfishness has completely torn our family apart, leaving it in irreparable fragments. Firstly, Sharon, you have broken my heart by blatantly disregarding my emotions. Remember me? Your husband, the one who has loved you unconditionally since the day we met? The man who tirelessly works to provide the life you desire for yourself and our children? You betrayed me to be with a stranger, disregarding the vows we made a decade ago. You pledged your body to me in front of our families, friends, and before God. Yet last night you made it abundantly clear that you would do as you pleased, regardless of my pleas. Essentially, you told me to go to hell, insisting on doing whatever you wanted without considering my feelings. I never intended for it to come across that way, Frank. I don't know why, but I didn't realize I was hurting you. I simply wanted to try something new. I love you. It wasn't about you. It was something I felt I needed. And that's precisely where you went wrong. You completely disregarded your husband. Your night with Glenn was solely about you and him, with no consideration for me or our children. You felt entitled to a special night just for yourself. Well, congratulations, Your Majesty. You had your special night, but it cost you your marriage to me and likely damaged your reputation with family and friends. Perhaps someday I will find it in my heart to forgive, but I will never forget. And I will ensure that everyone knows what you have done. You called me a big baby for being upset about your adultery. Let's see how you handle it when everyone hears you admitting to willingly engaging with Glenn 4 times while engaging in sexual acts twice. Oh no, Frank, please. You can't do that. My parents would be devastated. I'm sorry, Sharon. You should have considered that before you acted. You made your bed, and now you have to lie in it. You seem to believe that what you did is no big deal, like receiving a traffic ticket or forgetting to return a library book. You discarded a solid 10-year marriage with someone who genuinely cared for you, all for a one-night stand with a stranger. Was it worth losing your family over? I didn't think I would lose everything, Frank. I thought you would love me enough to understand and support me. No sane person would support their spouse having an affair simply because they desired something new for a single night. It doesn't work that way, and you should have known better. What were you thinking, Sharon? What compelled you to act in such a manner? I didn't anticipate that it would affect you so deeply, Frank. Seriously, what's the big deal about me being intimate with another man a few times? It hasn't changed anything between us physically. I'm still yours, waiting for you to reclaim what's rightfully yours. My actions with Glenn last night don't diminish my love for you. I've heard about couples swapping partners at social events, and the idea resonated with me. Why couldn't a husband or wife have a night with a safe stranger and enjoy it? I wanted to try something new just once, and then I would fully commit to you again. But it showed a lack of respect for me. I pleaded with you not to do it, yet you went ahead and did it anyway. You excluded me from something we have shared for over 10 years. Those vows meant the world to me. The connection we had brought 3 wonderful children into our lives who love us both. We were a family dedicated solely to each other. But now, you've shared the part of you that contributed to creating those kids with someone else. And for what? A fleeting thrill, a one-night fling. You may call it a single event to move on from, but to me, it's a complete betrayal of our family, our promises, and any respect you once had for me. You desired someone else, and you got it. But in doing so, Sharon, you discarded everything we held dear. A part of me still cares, but I can't continue to be with you. Why are you being so obstinate, Frank? Can't you see it was just something I needed? Nothing has changed between us. Everything is different, Sharon. You're no longer mine alone. I begged you not to do this. I can't simply forgive and forget. You betrayed me, and that wound won't easily heal. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with a lawyer to file for divorce, citing your adultery. I'll name Glenn and everyone else involved. Just imagine the fallout when your friends discover that you're responsible for the disintegration of their social circle. Go to hell, Sharon, and take your flings with you. As soon as I entered the office of Maddie Simmons, Esquire, I had a sense that I had finally found the right lawyer to navigate the mess my life had become. She was straightforward and efficient, wasting no time in addressing the core issues. She wanted to understand why I was seeking a divorce and what I aimed to achieve. I explained that I expected to divide our assets with Sharon, potentially offering her our home in exchange for a smaller cash settlement. I acknowledged that while obtaining full custody of my children was unlikely, I insisted on having unrestricted access to them and avoiding alimony payments. I presented the audio evidence I had of Sharon's betrayal, where she repeatedly admitted her affair with Glenn. Miss Simmons expressed disbelief, finding it difficult to comprehend that my wife would be so careless as to confess her actions in voicemails that could be used against her in court. She mentioned the possibility of involving a voice recognition expert to confirm the identity of the speaker. However, unless we encountered an unreasonable judge, these recordings should be admissible as evidence. We spent the remaining time discussing my objectives concerning Glenn and the others involved in the wife-swapping party. While monetary compensation might be challenging to obtain, Miss Simmons proposed finding a way to expose their activities publicly and embarrass them enough to cause harm. I informed her that the arrangement would be acceptable to me. I provided her with a payment in advance and requested her prompt assistance to Sharon. She assured me that it wouldn't take much time and promised to keep me informed in advance. On Tuesday afternoon, I picked up my children from my mother's place and took them back to Susan's house. When she greeted them, she warmly embraced and kissed them, then extended her hand towards me. However, I took a step back, causing her to become teary-eyed and plead with me to stay. I explained that I couldn't, but I believed it was best for the children to be at home with her, and I planned to retrieve them on Friday for the weekend. Sharon appeared to be going through a difficult time, and I sympathized with her. However, she brought it upon herself, and her struggles were not worse than what I was experiencing because of her. On Wednesday, I returned to work, knowing that I couldn't neglect my job. I needed it more than ever, not just for the income, but also as a mental distraction. If I dwelled too much on the pain and self-pity resulting from Sharon's betrayal, I feared I would lose my sanity, which I couldn't allow for the sake of my children. On Thursday, I met Doug and Max again, this time for dinner at the Half-Shell Oyster House, where I enjoyed their delicious charbroiled oysters and dirty martinis. During our meal, I updated them on my kids and the divorce proceedings. Doug had explored ways to safeguard some of my money, and I gave him permission to proceed. It might not be a significant amount, but it would be beneficial in the long run. Together, we brainstormed a simple plan to create turmoil within the Wife Swap Club without risking legal trouble. Max had a friend who worked as a reporter for the Beloit Sun-Herald newspaper. He believed that if I provided him with the Vanderlyn address and the meeting times of the wife-swapping group, he could uncover the identities of some participants. He suggested writing an editorial that hinted at the involvement of certain business owners in wife-swapping, without explicitly naming them, and obtaining photos of couples entering and exiting the meetings. This would generate enough controversy to cause problems for the group. I shared the limited information I had with Max, and he agreed to initiate the investigation. With that plan set in motion, we bid farewell, looking forward to the next time we would meet. My weekend with the kids was fantastic. We went shopping for new clothes, watched a Disney movie at the Grand 18 in D'Iberville, and spent an entire day at the beach swimming and playing frisbee. My children were my highest priority, and I made a promise to myself that I would always be there for them. On Monday morning, Max called me. His friend at the Sun-Herald newspaper liked the story idea and was figuring out how to capture photos of the couples entering and leaving the Vanderlyn house. Even if their faces were blurred, people in a small town like this would catch on quickly. If everything went according to plan, it could make headlines by the end of the week. I hoped for the best outcome. Sharon continued to call, begging me to return home, promising to do anything to make amends. However, she never apologized or acknowledged her mistake. On Wednesday, my attorney informed me that Sharon would be served with divorce papers at our home on Friday morning. Then Doug informed me that he had found a way to safeguard approximately one-third of my money by putting it in my children's names. Finally, Max called to inform me that his friend had discovered that the couples involved in swinging activities were planning to meet again on Friday night at Vanderlink's. He intended to stake out across the street in an unmarked van, capturing photographs of everyone. He also wanted to interview me once more regarding the party. If everything went smoothly, the article would be published in the newspaper next week. I felt a significant improvement in my emotional state compared to recent times. Friday arrived, and I anxiously awaited Sharon's anticipated call after she received the divorce papers. As expected, it came at 2:30. Shortly afterward, my lawyer called to inform me that she had been served. Then my phone rang again, and upon seeing the caller ID, I knew it was Sharon. I chuckled to myself, wondering what she wanted. Initially, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but I changed my mind. "Hey Sharon, what's going on?" I answered. "What on earth did you do, Frank?" Her tone was far from friendly. "I filed for divorce, just like I said I would," I replied. "And I told you there wouldn't be a divorce, and you filed for adultery." "Spending one night with another man isn't adultery, Frank." "I have to disagree with you there, Sharon," I calmly responded. "According to Mississippi law, engaging in intimacy with someone other than your spouse is considered adultery. And Glenn definitely had that with you." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Why are you being so cruel, Frank? I love you." All Glenn did was have a few intimate encounters with me. It was just a fling. "Oh, my mistake, Sharon. I must have misunderstood that engaging in intimacy outside of marriage is an adultery. How could I have gotten that wrong? Let it go, Sharon. It's done. I warned you countless times and pleaded with you not to do it, but you did it anyway. Now you have to face the consequences, and soon enough, you'll realize that your troubles aren't over yet. Goodbye, Sharon. Have a miserable life." With that, I hung up. The most challenging part was that I still had feelings for Sharon. Perhaps I always would. However, I couldn't trust her any longer, and I couldn't remain married to someone who cheated. I knew I shouldn't go to Vanderlink's on Friday night, but I couldn't resist driving by once to see what was happening. I also wanted to check if Sharon's car was present, even though I doubted she would attend the party this time. Her car wasn't there, but she could have gone with someone else. Normally, they only allowed couples, but they made an exception for her once, so who's to say they wouldn't do it again? Across the street, I noticed a parked van, likely where the reporter was stationed. I wished him luck in exposing the truth. Results arrived swiftly the following afternoon. Max's reporter friend called, requesting some insider information, which I gladly provided. He mentioned taking over 100 photos and recognizing more than a dozen prominent couples from the city. Interestingly, they were not the same couples seen departing the residence 2 hours later. Max had given him a photo of my wife, and he confirmed that she was neither among those entering nor leaving the Vanderlink's house. He wanted me to describe what I had witnessed and experienced during one of the key parties. I did my best to explain how the keys were placed into a bowl, although I never actually witnessed the part where men selected a key and left with the corresponding woman. However, I gained a good understanding from my wife's account and overhearing conversations among other couples. Before ending the call, he asked if he could allude to knowing about a marriage that ended due to the parties, leaving children to cope with their parents' divorce. I agreed, as long as no names were mentioned. The article was published in the Sunday edition of the newspaper, creating quite a commotion. It made front-page news, featuring a large photo of couples entering and exiting the premises, their faces blurred. The story continued for 4 more pages, accompanied by numerous additional photos. Despite efforts to conceal their identities, participants were easily recognizable by their cars and clothing, as they were prominent members of high society. By Monday, the story had become the talk of the town. Several ministers were interviewed about the decline in morality, and civic leaders denounced the situation. Lawsuits were filed, but they ultimately yielded no results. Some businesses lost customers, and many couples found themselves in divorce court. To me, it was all rather amusing, a fitting retribution for the pain I endured from losing my wife and family. Even if people realized I had been betrayed, I didn't care. I had achieved my revenge, and that was all that mattered. Sharon persisted in trying to win me back for months, but I remained steadfast in my decision. The divorce was finalized, and I obtained joint custody of our children. We divided the time with them, with me having them for the month and Sharon having them on weekends, and vice versa. It's not an ideal situation, but we're managing. Since Sharon didn't contest anything in the divorce, I chose not to share the recordings of her confessing her affair with her family or friends. As for the couples involved in the key parties, some ended up divorcing and leaving town, perhaps due to the scandal. Sharon has started dating again, although I'm not sure she fully comprehends why her actions hurt me so deeply. But that's her problem now, and I wish her future husband the best of luck. I have been going out with a few pleasant ladies, but I haven't discovered the perfect match to establish a long-term relationship with just yet. Some have proposed the idea of moving in together, but I remain apprehensive about entrusting a woman with a key to my home.